Hey you, my name is Jer, and I suck at EVE Online, but I suck a little bit less when I'm part of a good team, when I've got friends around, when I've got help, and when I've got big projects to help other people with. That's what corporations and EVE Online are all about. And in this video, I'm going to talk about why you probably want to join a corporation, what you could hopefully get out of them, and what you might want to keep an eye out for. So I'm going to use EVE University, a corporation I'm in, an iconic one from the history of EVE Online, as the example here. So this is going to fix two bugs with one commit, as I like to say, because I've been meaning to do a corporation video and an EVE University video, and I figure they're a good example of the different things you can look for and consider in a corporation, and also they're just a great corporation, and you should flat out consider joining us in the uni. So for new players, my goal is to help you decide, help you find a corporation, help you think about it. For old players, you might know a lot of this. What I'd love from the old players who already know all about this is drop in the comments, tell me your stories. You could promote your corporation you're in, your alliance, tell people why it's cool, tell people your horror stories about things that are going wrong and your success stories about things that went right. I would love to be this to be a big sharing opportunity. I'm probably going to mix in some stories about my history in different corporations, but I'd love to hear yours. All right, and new people, tell me what you're thinking. I just love comments. Um, so, uh, what is Eve University? Well, I will start with just showing our wiki. Of course, a lot of people know Eve University as the wiki, right? The Uni Wiki. It is the place to learn about all kinds of outrageously esoteric topics in EVE Online. It's not the corporation, it's just some volunteers in the corporation that manage it. Anyone can participate, anyone can log in with EVE Online and update the wiki if you have better information. But we do take a sort of responsibility for it, and I'm really proud of being in the organization that creates this document because it is incredible. Okay, so but the university is an alliance called Ivy League and a corporation called Eve University, and the people in it are called Unistas. And its goal is to make Eve more accessible, to have people teaching each other. So there's actually classes. One of the things that this corporation offers that most don't is a literal set of classes that happen every week. There's a few classes, and you go and you join in the audio comms. And often there's an in-person part, the D-scan class. You do a little hide and seek using D-scan and things like that. Okay, so that's Eve University. On top of that, it's just a place to do all kinds of different activities in Eve. One of the goals is, compared to a lot of more specialized corporations, is to cover everything. So there's stuff about mining, stuff about PvE and missions and abyssals, and there's people doing exploration, and there's people doing combat, and there's also lots of combat fleets. Although we don't have any null we don't own territory in nullsec. We do have stuff that happens in nullsec, and you can go participate. We defend our territory in nullsec. So that's Eve University, and I'll talk more. I'll get into all the different things that we do, which is listed on this lovely page that is not the official wiki page, but it's a really useful one. Um, as we go, as we talk about different elements of corporations. But that's Eve University. I've been in here. I didn't join the first time I played Eve. I joined a couple other corporations, and I regret it because this is a really good place for new players. You want to join some kind of new player corporation. And also, they're really long lived. I had another corporation I was in, an industrial corporation. I came back to the game and they were gone. The person who had invited me was gone. I had been ejected, and there seemed to be no reason to rejoin. Whereas Eve University is vibrant. I think you could go away for years and come back, and Eve University would still be there for you. That's one of the reasons why I'm like kind of hoping to just stay there indefinitely. All right, so that's Eve University. There's lots of different corporations in the game. You do not have to just look at this one. It's just the one I'm in and one I'll use as an example. All right, so why join a corporation? Um, that is the question posed that I promised to answer here. And to me, the number one answer is friends. People say, what's the strongest ship in the game? And the answer is, oh, well, it depends what you want. Maybe you want a big ship, maybe you want a small ship, but the best ship is friendship. If you are always alone in EVE Online, you'll probably get bored and stop playing because it's a boring, tedious game. Why do you play it? Probably because it's exciting to play around other people. And why? And that's about enemies as well as friends. but you should try to have some friends in addition to the enemies. And joining a corporation is the best way to just put those people in front of you. If you're in a corporation with people, you're sort of automatically encouraged to interact with them and get to know them, and they'll get to know you. So you definitely just want to find something, anything. More importantly, on some level, is the mentoring aspect, especially if you're new. Not all alphas are new. I'm an alpha forever, for my whole life. And oh, yeah, one of the things I'm going to be mentioning is how all of this applies to alphas, of course. I'm going to think about that. Although a lot of this, it applies to everyone pretty much. So you don't have to worry too much about being an alpha. But if you're new, you want to get people around that you can ask questions to in a casual way. You want to be in a position where you are asking things just because, like, why not? And in a corporation, often there's audio comms. You get on Discord voice, or you get on Mumble voice chat, and you're just talking to people. And it's perfect because, like, maybe everyone's doing something different. One of you is doing missions, someone's exploring, but you have a question, you just hit the button and ask. And that is a really valuable thing that you want to cultivate in your game, I think, because you're playing alone. It can get really lonely and it can get boring. And also, it can get hard, and it's hard to look things up while you're playing. You're trying to go Googling, and you say that, oh, I've been playing for hours and I got nothing done. Getting on comms in a corporation is a really good way to make the game easier, more interesting, and more fun at the same time. So I definitely recommend finding a corporation where you want to talk to people, where there's friendly people who are online, at the right time, because that could be a tricky thing. But definitely that's a value. And also mentoring on a deeper level, specifically finding that friend who wants to help you out with stuff, who's interested in the same things as you, and who you can just go to on Discord and ask a question to. I know Eve University has a explicit mentoring program. If that's what you want, you go sign up and you pick someone, and they are there to answer your questions. Not all corporations will have that. A lot of them probably will, I think. But if nothing else, you could just find that person who doesn't mind if you message them directly. But it doesn't even have to be a specific person. I find that on EVU's University, we have a Discord, and the Discord is a huge value. There's all these different channels. There's an industry channel. There's a channel for fitting specifically, where you can go post a fit. And there's a few people in each channel that will answer any type of question. We have a channel about low-sec, and so I ask questions about smart bombing and surviving as an explorer in low-sec. And there's people who will answer there about things versus the people who just love to sit there and Python and do fits and things like that. So find a corporation that gives you those services from a smaller group. You can always go to the forum, you can go to Reddit, but those places are big, they're messy, they're ugly. People are often rude and weird to you. Finding a corporation gets people in a mental state to just help you out. So join a corporation to get that help. All right. Why else should you join a corporation? Well, one really good reason is taxes. In EVE Online, every corporation has a tax rate, and it affects a bunch of things. It doesn't affect trading in the market or contracts, but it does affect your payouts in missions and bounties. I know those two. And I think there's other things, but I think those might be the big ones. Either way, the tax rate of your corporation is important because that's money that's going from you to the corporation, okay? And the thing to keep in mind is, one, different corporations have different tax rates. So some of them are going to be higher, some of them are going to be lower. If it's higher, you want to expect services from the corporation, right? Like, you should get something for that money. They should be giving out ships, they should be giving out something, or just giving you access to safe space, depending on where you are. But you should be getting something. If you're in high sec and you're in a corporation with lots of taxes, they should definitely be giving you something. So they can set it to 0 if they want to. And so one option is, if nothing else, join a corporation that's a 0 tax rate corporation and offers you nothing, because it's better than what happens by default. Because by default, you're in a NPC corporation, like the Center for Advanced Studies, these generic organizations that are part of the NPC world, and they have very high tax rates and they offer you absolutely nothing. So if you're in one of those corporations, that's a terrible mistake. You should go look for just any 0% tax corporation and join it. You can also just create your own organization. I think even an alpha can create a corporation, set the tax rate to 0, and then just at least you're not wasting your taxes into those rookie corporations. So definitely you want to join, but my advice is don't just start your own. Don't just join some random 0% tax corporation. Look for one that's meaningful. Look for one that offers you a community that's valuable to you and that you can be valuable to. Um, just to say it out loud, being that person who helps others is also satisfying and fun and makes the game more interesting. So I find that, I don't know if you find that, but I love sharing what I've learned. Maybe you've noticed if you watch my channel. But being in a corporation is like a smaller version of that is spread out over time and low stakes, and you can put time into it when you want to. Anyway, all right. So you do it to get the taxes, either to pay no taxes or to get something for your taxes. And you do it for the services that they are going to provide, the services as well as the sort of opportunities. So I'm going to talk about the opportunities of content creation that you get from a corp. And then I'm going to talk about the more explicit services like ships and stuff that they give you. So when I think about my corporation, one of the things I want is for things to happen. So here's a picture of a Magic Merlin's Roam that I did with EVE University. This is happening pretty much every night. There was a PvP roam, and this one was, we all got together in these cheap ships, the Merlins, all in the same fit. They were available very affordably from the corporation, but you could buy them on contract. And in this case, the first one was free. The person running it said, the first ship you lose, I'll pay for it. So he was paying out of his pocket to get practice as a fleet commander, because that's what he wanted, I think. But anyway, yeah, it's just said, hey, if you want to join. We're all going to get together. We're going to fly to Pochvin, a very dangerous and violent and lawless part of space. And we're just going to see who we can fight and see who we can kill. So I joined up. We roamed around. We got in a fight. We died. We got back in new ships and went around again. And that's an interesting type. It's not for everyone. It's kind of long and boring. I don't know if it's for me if I want to do it a lot, but I got to try it out because EVE University was providing this content of this fleet that was organized, and where I could trust people. No one was going to screw with me. You could join. There's public fleets you can join outside of corporations, but being in a corporation that's offering the kind of fleets you're interested in is very, very useful. And there's various types of EVE University is great because there's all kinds of different PvP fleets. Sometimes we're at war, and I'll talk a little bit about that near the end. But mostly we're going out and doing it for fun, going to places where it's safe to fight. And so that is really nice. So that's a PvP fleet. Another type of fleet that happens a lot is PvE fleets. So people will be just doing level 4 missions. If you're not familiar with that, they're the very profitable missions. It's a lot of work to get access to those missions, but they will simply be some people who do have access, and they'll say, hey, who wants to join up? And you just join up with them. When we fly around in Gnosis ships, they give out, they'll lend you a ship just to ride around with them. You'll make a ton of you'll make a ton of LP. And that's just people in the corporation trying to make content for each other. And in this case, in EVE University's case, it's also a practice thing. They're teaching you how to participate in those missions, how to participate in a fleet, warping around as a group and all these different things, following orders and working together. So that's another type of content and fleets that corporation can and probably should be providing, because the game is more interesting and more efficient a lot of the time when you're doing it as a big group. Also, another one, mining. If you are into mining, then you don't want to be doing it all by yourself. It's even more boring and it's less efficient. And we know if you're doing mining, you're probably into efficiency because there's not much else to think about when you're mining. But EVE University, for example, has a whole mining wing. We have moons. There's a whole thing about having a moon and popping the moon and going and mining the moon goo while it's there temporarily. And there's fleets. And as part of mining fleets, what you want is the boosters. You want someone in like an Orca ship that can do the command boosts that make everyone able to mine faster. And there's also a whole thing with compression these days where having someone in an Orca means that everyone can hold more ore in their ship before they have to go back, all that stuff. If you're into mining, you know about it. If you're mining by yourself, well, consider joining a corporation that offers you that service. EVE University isn't the best for this. It's not the best for anything because it's everything, right? We have all these different things I'm talking about. So it doesn't specialize. If you really are just mining, then you look for an industrial corporation that has mining fleets all the time. Some of them have constant mining fleets. So you can join those and then just be a part of it. And if you are the Orca, right, then join and be the one boosting, right? And have your boost instead of having an Orca. You know, a lot of miners, it's one Orca and they're multi-boxing and they have a couple miners and they're boosting themselves. You could be boosting a lot more people. And you could be boosting on a moon that someone just popped. And if you're doing that by yourself, it's probably a lot of work. So, okay. Mining fleets, PvE fleets. You know, another good example was the drone event. So this was something that happened last year while I was in Eve Uni. I took a picture of myself in this worm that I bought. It was a pop-up event, you know, like the winter and the Halloween. But this one was just a random one where you fought these big, hard drone sites. They were really tricky. But because I was in Eve University, there were people saying like, "Hey, we're gonna figure it out. Let's get it together." And we figured out an Algos fit. And Algos is a very affordable ship. And they figured out a fit where the Algos could survive if you were in a group. And then we bought a bunch of the stuff together. And then we were just handing them out. Anyone in the corporation that wanted to participate, we were like, "Here, we have all the modules. We have all the ships in our home base. And you can just come and we'll fit the ship again and you can get together with us." And we all learned how to do the event together, practicing with these cheap ships. While working with my corporation mates, I was actually able to save up enough from doing this event to buy a worm, a much more expensive ship that was actually went way up in price during this event because for this specific event, it was a perfect ship to solo the sites. So I not only learned how to do the sites, I saved up enough to buy a great ship and then started soloing them myself afterwards and made even more money, although I ended up dying. That ship blew up. Damn, it was my fault. I wasn't paying attention. I didn't overheat, all different things. I was alone, maybe. If I had been with my corporation mates, I almost certainly would not have died doing those sites. So there you go, another lesson. But for me, these were sites that I probably would have been like, I don't know what to do. I would have tried it. I would have died and I would have gone back to doing my same boring old thing. But being in the corporation meant that I was able to figure it out and participate. And that's the kind of content that a corporation can and probably should be providing, assuming you're into that. You know, if you're just in an exploration focused corporation, well, what you want is for them to help you understand how to solo the sites, probably, because exploration fleets are a bit strange. But either way, providing content, making content accessible is something that Eve University is really good at, and lots of other corporations are good at, and lots of corporations are going to help you with things like that. Having a little drink of water as we move on to the next subject, which is stuff. What is the corporation providing you in exchange for those taxes, or just providing you? Some corporations, they're just hoping that people will stick around and provide content for them, and they like to mentor people. So they're like being generous, you know, there's donations happening that beyond just the taxes. And I know that applies to Eve University. So on this Eve University page, we can see a list of our services, and I'm just going to use it to talk about the different stuff. So one thing is the different staging. So the different places where we have stations and stuff like that that are useful. So in the case of Eve University, there used to be high sec, low sec, wormhole, and nullsec, but it's sort of been consolidated to basically high sec, which is surrounded by low sec in Stackmon, the main system. There's a lot of low sec near there, so you have access to it. There's a wormhole community, so if you want to join that, it's special. A lot of corporations are wormhole corporations, and you're fundamentally like you're committed to that because it's so intense being in a wormhole, that lifestyle. But interesting. But our wormhole community is almost a separate corporation. If you want to participate, you want to even visit, you have to apply and have a bunch of skills, and it doesn't. Alphas can't do it because they want people to have skills. Okay, wormhole. But if that's what you want to join a wormhole corporation and get involved and have them provide you all the like help that you need to make that work. There's an incursion. Incursions is a whole type of content I haven't tried, but I know Eve University provides that. And if that's what you want to do, you want to be in a corporation that's getting involved, because otherwise you're going to be moving around and it's a whole nomadic lifestyle. Um, Okay. And it doesn't say it here, but I'll say one of the really important things is nullsec. If you're going to live in dangerous parts of space, low sec and nullsec, having access to stations that are reliable, that are yours, is really important. And so in Eve University, there is a nullsec presence in the pocket, as they call it. It's a bunch of systems with bottleneck system that is sort of defended a little bit. It's not always safe, but if you're online and you're talking to people in the nullsec pocket, you end up with a situation where you're helping each other stay safe. So you might get on Mumble and it's the voice, and you say, "Hey, I'm in the nullsec pocket. Is it safe?" And people will say, "Well, there's a guy camping outside our station. You can try to sneak by him, but don't just fly around in this system. Jump to the next system, jump a few systems over if you want to stay safe. And you can collaborate like that. And then every once in a while, they'll be like, all right, let's go kill this guy. And everyone will get together and try to figure out ships and try to figure out a strategy to defeat him. And every now and then they do. Every now and then they get killed. But it's interesting and it's content. So if you want some nullsec content beyond just running around trying to stay out of people's way and escape people and be slippery, being in a corporation is probably the best way to gain access to it. And you need to be in the right corporation that has it. And I'll briefly talk about the null blocks, the big corporations that own space sovereignty in nullsec, where there's no NPC stations and stuff. You gotta be in a corporation to live there, and you end up in these alliances, and it's a whole very elaborate system. I haven't done it. It doesn't appeal to me personally. I like being a little more free floating and not having to commit to things. But if you're interested in being part of the big wars that define Eve University, you're going to go and look at your Pandemic Horde and your Brave and your Goon Swarm, although they're gross. But don't let me tell you what's gross. I'm just a high quality person that doesn't tolerate racism and sexism thing. Whoops. That's not what this is about. I love Eve University because they do not tolerate any kind of like BS about racism and sexism. It's very inclusive and progressive, and I'm just that kind of person. I'm a left wing person. So find this corporation that has the mood you're looking for. I'm sure there's ethical corporations out in nullsec if that's what you want. Um, Eve University to me has a nice balance because our nullsec is just enough to give you access to it without being the type of nullsec, because in the nullsec you have to defend your territory. And it means there's a lot of wars that you're going to be wanted or expected to participate in. Eve University doesn't own enough stuff to have drama like that. It's always opt in about PvP, only if you really want to. Um, this was a picture I had of something that happened in nullsec. In nullsec, there's these giant dreadnoughts that show up, and they're really hard to kill. If you go and try and kill them by yourself, you're just gonna die. They're way harder to kill than the battleships you see in low sec and stuff. But the corporation is organized. There's this certain Vexor fit that is cost about 45 million, and they have them on contract in our nullsec station. So you can just go grab one, and then if you have more than 7 people or whatever, you can reliably kill these dreadnoughts. So people are able to come and participating in this very interesting content that's very hard to do by yourself, hard and dangerous. Whereas here, as a group, they team up with a bunch of relatively affordable ships in a reliable way to do it. And similar things happen in HiSec with the forward operating bases and things like that. So just some more examples of and nullsec, and you can go watch my video about nullsec ratting, where I sit in a Vexor and make quite a bit of money reliably by killing battleships in our nullsec pocket. And people commented and said, yeah, but you need to be in a corporation that has that. And the answer is yes. Get in a corporation. And if you're into the nullsec stuff, just a little without all the wars and stuff, Eve University is a great example to me of someone with just enough of a presence all over space in all of these different types of activities that you could try everything. And then if you really like nullsec and you like the drama of being in danger all the time and stuff, then come and join one of the Brave or something. All right. So coming back, so I was trying to talk about services, but I got waylaid with parts of space and support and staging. But I think that's all useful information to know where is your corporation that you're interested in. Where do you want to be? Where is your corporation? You can always start in a HiSec corporation and migrate over to a nullsec or a lowsec or a wormhole corporation later, depending on what you're interested in. So to talk about some of the other things, I already talked about the classes, which is a really unique thing about Eve University, but could be part of something else. And for what it's worth, if you want to participate in classes, you can come to StackMon. in Galente space in the Placid region, and you can participate. You could join our Discord and our forums without becoming a member of the corporation, and you'll have all the information about classes to come and join. It's mostly students, mostly university corporation members, but anyone can join. There's the mentor program, fleet command. So, like I was saying, there's people who want to learn how to be FCs, fleet commanders, and being in a corporation like Eve University is a great way to do that if that's what you want to do. We have the wiki, so the special events, mining fleets, mission fleets, PvP fleets, talked about that. So in terms of services, it's a good example of some of the kinds of services that you can get. So skillbook program. In Eve University, skill books under 3 million each. So there's all these different prices for skill books. Some of them are much more expensive, and they will be the ones that actually eat into your money the most. But if you're just getting started and the early skill books are getting in your way, they'll pay you back for them. And I know that some of the null blocks, if you join, they just give you a ship full of books, just with every book in it, and you could just slam through them and learn them all and have them ready to train. Um, so that's the kind of service for new players, especially, that could be really useful, because saving up for new ships and saving up for skill books can be a real drag. In a similar way, implants. I don't know how many corporations offer it, but I really like this implants program from Eve University. And what it is every player can join and then get a full set of +3 implants. So those are the training implants, the ones that help you gain skill points faster. It causes you a problem because when you have skill point, these discount implants, when you have implants, you have to change your head. Like if you die, if you lose your pod, you'll lose them. This full set that they give you is worth over 100 million. So it's a really nice little gift to get, so that you don't have to save up for those implants. You just have to not die. I got mine, and then I blew up my pod in the abyss like a dummy. Um, but it was a very nice thing, and I actually ended up getting some from it worked out. People are very generous in Eve University, and someone actually gave me a full set of implants without me even having to use this program, so I was able to use it again. All right, so skill books and implants, training, things that are going to help you grow as a character faster. Flight deck, and ship replacement program are two facets of the same thing, which is helping you have ships, helping you get into the ships you want to get into, and helping you replace the ships that you lose. So when I was first playing, I was in a industrial corp. I was a miner. I joined to be a miner. I met this guy in mining, generic mining chat, and he liked the cut of my jib, I guess. And he invited me. He mentioned his corporation and some of the things that they had, and I was like, wow, that sounds nice. And then I was like, can I join? Like, it was nice. He didn't pressure me, but I was like, can I join? He's like, sure. And I moved out to where he was, and I had my venture, and I was hustling with my venture. And there was nothing in this corporation that said you'll get a free barge. But I saved up my 60 million. I had my skill points enough to buy a barge, and I was like, I can finally buy a barge. I'm going to go to the trade hub and buy it. And he was like, you know what? Congratulations. And he just gave me a barge. He gave me my first retriever or whatever it was. And that was just a really sweet thing, and it was a nice moment because I had earned it. He waited for me to earn it, which I actually really appreciated. But then he gave it to me, and so I already had my nest egg, and if I lost it, I could go buy another one. And that's like a little microcosm. That's like a small corporation thing. Like, he was the CEO, and he was like managing the individual people. Whereas in Eve University, it takes the place of a flight deck, which is uh, a bunch of contracts in the home base of the corporation with ships in them for free. And I've seen a variety of this in different places, and usually they're cheap, crappy ships, but hey, you can fly them fearlessly, and you can try new things without having to save up. And also, it's really nice, this kind of like flight deck modality where you get a contract with a ship in it and all the modules. So you don't have to think about how to fit it. You don't have to go to the trade hub and buy every single little module. So it's a great way to learn how to fly a ship and try it without learning how to fit it, and also without the potential pitfalls of making mistakes in fitting. So this is really useful. In this case, it's free T1 frigates. At different times, I think there's been things like Algoses and like cheaper destroyers and stuff like that. But in a similar way, like, that's the free T1 frigates. But in my experience, the flight deck is much more than that, because corporation members will put in ships that are not free. but are excellent. Like when we went on this Magic Merlins, right? They weren't free because they were nice. They had good modules on them, even though they're T1 frigates. If you put some good modules on them, it goes up to like 8 million, and that's not the end of the world. You can afford 8 million. I don't know. Watch my videos. There's advice about how to make 8 million, that's for sure. But having them all just right there in the corporation home base on an 8 million contract in the flight deck, oh, that's so nice. It's so convenient, and it makes it easy to go participate in activities as well as to just play and learn. Okay, so flight decks, such a useful thing. I don't know, maybe there's people doing stuff like that in the trade hubs, but it's really, to me, been a tremendous value to have people putting up contracts. And I've also joined a faction warfare corporation, and in that case it's extremely useful because you're out in low sec, you're super far away from all the trade hub. But if your corporation is putting up contracts with the common ships that people use in the faction warfare, it makes it so much easier when you lose a ship to just go back, grab a ship for a few million, and get back out there. So flight decks and contracts, ships on contract. If you haven't had that lifestyle before, you got to try it. It's really nice. And then ship replacement program is related, but specifically that is um, when your corporation is doing an activity that they consider important and you lose a ship, they will pay you back for it in cash, right? So rather than having all the ships that you might need on contracts for free, which is a lot of work for their logistics, and maybe they do both things, but like often, if there's a war and you're defending a structure, they'll say, we don't have enough ships for everyone. But if you bring a ship and it explodes, we will pay you back from the corporation, either from the taxes and the corporation wallet, or someone will just offer to do it because they have a lot of money and they care about this structure. Maybe they're making a lot of money from that structure. Ship replacement program, that's what it is. It doesn't exist in all cases. Not every ship you lose is going to be replaced, but depending on your corporation, they'll probably have some kind of ship replacement program. And it's a very interesting way to get into things like PvP, to get into risky activities without constantly having to grind all these other activities to have enough money to lose those ships. All right. What else do we have? Other activities, no, not activities, but services that you want to look for. Um, I'll talk about hauling for a sec. I've found that a lot of corporations, especially ones that are out in a weird place, will offer to haul things for free. They have people who are using the giant hauling ships, the jump freighters, and the things like this that can carry fully fitted ships and all that stuff. And so, in the case of Eve University, they'll take you from JITA and the staging areas. So that means the high sec base, the nullsec base. So if you are in nullsec and it's really hard to put ships together in nullsec, they just say, hey, get an alt in JITA, have the alt in JITA, which is a major trade hub, assemble the ship and put all the modules together, and then put a contract to our hauling service, and we will bring it for free. And that is just outrageous. And it's saving time of jumping around, buying the ship and jumping it, and then you lose the ship on the way. And you have to go back. Really, really valuable. And it exists. My Faction Warfare Corporation also has this service to get out into the middle of nowhere, low sec, where you'll actually use the ship. So to me, free hauling, huge value, and Eve University offers it. And I think it's something that if you're alone, you're the hauler. And do you want to be the hauler? Some people like that. I find it a bit mysterious, but people like that activity, and all the power to them. For me, I'd usually rather spend my time thinking about my fit and then using it, and the stuff in between is a bit boring. So hauling, really great service that is in a lot of corporations. Um, and then the manufacturing. Okay. So manufacturing is a whole thing. It's really hard to do all of the logistics. There's all these different buildings. So when you're doing production, right, building things, taking ore that you've mined, you can just sell it, right? Often the most profitable thing you can do with ore is just sell it. But if you are wanting to actually turn it into stuff, you need a specific building, a structure that does the refining, and then a building that does the production. And I don't know, there's a third one and I forget what it even does. There's reactions, and I don't understand all of manufacturing. But what I do know is owning those buildings is a lot of work. And having corporations own those buildings and then give you favorable tax rates and make everything easy for you and have the hauling between the places where those buildings are, unmissable. So if you're like, and I think you need a corporation just to own a building. So if you're by yourself, you need to start a corporation just to put up one of those buildings. But oh man, you probably don't want that hassle all by yourself. So corporations offer that stuff and make it so much more effective. So finding an industrial corporation is a really good idea if that's what you want. And Eve University is like it is everything else. It's an industrial corporation and it offers all those services on top of the mining stuff. So one facet of that I'll jump onto is blueprints, right? The blueprints, that's what you use to create. There's the blueprint originals and the blueprint copies. You can go buy the blueprint copies, but if you have a blueprint original, you can take your character and just use their energy to create blueprint copies. And so a lot of corporations offer a library of blueprint originals that you're allowed to take and copy. And because it doesn't use it up, everyone can do it and you can share it. So there's just a huge synergy of having a bunch of people share blueprint originals. And Eve University is an example of a corporation that has a nice library of blueprint originals that you can go and borrow and put back. And so it's a great way to get into that whole blueprint thing. You can make money just copying blueprints and selling the copies. And you are allowed to do that with the stuff that the university has. So anyway, if you're into that, that's not some alpha stuff. Sorry, alphas watching. Manufacturing is not our thing. We are not good at it. But if you do want to do it, hey, getting in a corporation like Eve University where a bunch of the stuff is free and the fees are lower and it's made as easy and cheap as possible is the best way to do it. Because famously, alphas lose money when they produce things. Like the stuff coming in, you'd be better off selling it. And if you're buying it, you'd lose money. But for sure, the best possible way to do it is with free blueprint originals as a starting point. All right, so manufacturing, if you're in that, you know, you can't do that without a corporation. But as you're choosing a corporation, if you're thinking, maybe I want to do some manufacturing, well, choose a corporation that has some of that, and it'll be a lot easier to get into it without having to switch corporations completely. All right. And so I talked about structures. Oh, buyback. Okay, buyback. Okay, and the barge program is just a version of the flight deck where they give cheap mining ships. And buyback program is the last thing I'll talk about. I wanted to bring up a high-sec buyback. So high-sec buyback is a really nice service. You don't have to be in the corporation, and you just tell it what you have, and they give you some version of the price in JITA. But you can give it to them anywhere. You go to any station in high sec, that's their thing, no low sec, no null sec, so that they can relatively safely go and pick it up. And then they have a whole elaborate logistics service so that they have people jumping around all day, every day, collecting things and picking it up and selling it and making the most of it. And this is incredible. So no matter where you are, and even if you're in a corporation that has buyback, they won't have it at every single station in high sec. So high sec buyback is really valuable. What a corporation will do is offer you the same thing, but an even better deal. So high-sec buyback offers up to 90% of JITA buy. So they'll give you they'll give you an amount of ISK in relation to how much the stuff would have cost in JITA, but it's not always 100%. And for things like minerals, it's way, way less. If you have a corporation, they'll often offer a better deal. Like in Eve University, the buyback program offers you 95% of the JITA buy price on everything except minerals, because minerals are just so inconvenient. But that is a way better deal. That's way more reliable. Now, I have to be in one of the staging areas. So I have to be in our nullsec headquarters or our highsec headquarters. But if I'm doing missions, if that's my home base, I'm probably bringing things back there and it's not that hard. And then I don't have to go, because otherwise, right, what are you doing? Well, you accumulate stuff and then you have to drag it to JITA, Dodixie, Amar, Renz, or Heck, right? One of the 5 big trade hubs. Because otherwise, if you try to sell things at a random place, you're not going to get jack spot. So that's, but once again, like the hauling, you could also use the hauling service in Eve University to haul your stuff to JITA and then sell it there if that's what you wanted to do. But the buyback program is basically a facet of the same thing where they're just taking that complication away from you and saying, look, they are probably going to haul it to JITA, but Maybe not. Maybe they're like, actually, that's a bunch of stuff that's useful to us. And we're just going to put it, we're going to take those modules that you sold us in the Buyback program and we're going to put it in ships in the flight deck. Or we're going to take that ore and like the way it works is there's two different buyback programs, one for ore because it's a lower price and it's not based on GDA. They have a spreadsheet to check the prices because it's all relative and the minerals are so big, et cetera, et cetera. You can go read about it. They are going to use those minerals with the blueprints to produce the ships to put in the flight deck, right? That kind of thing. So buyback program is a great synergistic relationship where you're helping your corporation on some level, they're helping you, and you're not sitting there hauling your stuff back and forth 100 million at a time because you're afraid of getting ganked, right? These are both the free hauling and the buyback program are ways for you not to think about ganking until you want to. And I'll give a shout out, alpha warning. For alphas, this is extremely useful because alpha's ability to haul safely is very limited. No matter how much you want to do it, no matter how much skill points you put into hauling and hauling safely, it's just really hard to do without multi-boxing and without cloaks. And so maybe someday I'll do a alpha hauling video to try and explain why it's so dangerous and how to do it safe. But for now, we'll just say for alphas, this stuff is invaluable, the hauling and the buyback. So yeah, okay. Is there anything else? Hauling implants. All right. So that's the whole thing, right? You want to find the corporation that provides you the things you care about and not the things you don't because other people are getting it. You know, if you don't want implants, and actually for alphas, implants aren't very useful because once you reach 5 million, it's not going to do anything for you. And so theoretically, I'm leaking money at this point because other people are taking the free implants, but don't have any use for them. But you know what? I got them. While I was trading, I got them. And now I still have one clone that has all those implants for when I temporarily get Omega because people use my referral code, which you can find in the description. Great. So jumping out, I talked about nullsec space. Faction warfare. Okay, like faction warfare is the whole thing where you join the army of one of the Empire militias. And the thing to say about that is just you can't do it without joining a corporation. You either join the NPC faction warfare corporation for that empire, which is not a good thing because again, the taxes and all that stuff, or you join one of the corporations that is in faction warfare. There are plans in the future to let people declare allegiance to a faction without joining a corporation. For now, that's not an option. Either way, if you really want to get into it, you have to join a corporation. And those corporations are very dedicated to that topic and to getting you ships and getting you out in space and having fights. And they have fleets nonstop, like I'm in the Galente faction warfare, and there's nonstop activity in terms of people on Discord doing voice chat, doing fleets fighting. So if you want that, you got to do it. Go look it up. I'm in Aderon Robotics, which I think I have somewhere in here. Yeah. So I'm in a corporation called Aderon Robotics, and it's in the Convocation of Empyreans, and they're really great. Ashtarothi is a YouTuber that runs it. And so they do Galente warfare against the Kaldari, and it is fun. And so I recommend it. If you're into that, you can create an alt and get involved right away. They have skill plans that will use your 1 million skill points to get you right into a ship. If you're interested in creating new characters, check out my video about min-maxing the alpha SP to get the most out of an alpha character. Okay, so, all right. What's the downside? What are the potential downsides of being in a corporation? Well, one is war declarations. So I can't explain all of war, but needless to say, war declarations are a way for people to give themselves permission to attack you in high sec, right? High sec is normally safe, but if someone is in a war, then they can kill you without getting themselves killed by Concord. If you're not in a corporation or if you're in an NPC corporation, it's impossible for anyone to declare war on you. So you'll always be safe from that complication. If you are in a small corporation, that specifically one that doesn't own structures is sort of the way it shakes out. It didn't used to be like this, but I think it was a big improvement that they said, if your corporation is small enough, you don't own any structures, no one can declare war on you. To declare war, both sides have to have a structure, and the structure sort of defines the parameters of the war. I'm not an expert, but So if you just hate wars, join a little corporation or start one, and then you can have some of the benefits of a corporation without that danger that there will be periods of days or weeks where flying around in high sec isn't safe. And some corporations just hide from it, and other corporations go and fight. And those are both ups and downs because if you have to hide from it, well, you can't play or you have to play differently for a while. Maybe you just go, I might just get an exploration ship, hop into a wormhole, and wars don't matter in wormholes or low sec. But depending on what you're doing, it might be a big problem. If you're in one that does have buildings and they decide to fight back, well, that gets you into one of the big dangers of being in a corporation, which is expectations. Because if your corporation expects everyone to come and fight and you don't want to, that won't be fun. Um, and so you need to be aware when you're joining a corporation what they are likely to expect from you as a player in times of crisis. In Eve University, there is no expectation that anyone participates. They consider wars something that is part of Eve, and so there are fights. Like this day when we did the Magic Merlins, we actually went to Parchment and came back, and there was a war on. So we just went and fought war targets, and it was actually more exciting to me than the Parchment part, but it was completely optional. I only was on that fight because I had time that night and I was like, let's try it out. Let's see if I like it. And if you like it, maybe you go and join a different corporation that's at war all the time that declares wars. Or you join a corporation that's in nullsec and war is an inherent part of it. And you go and do wars and try and invade and do all that kind of thing. It's up to you. But if you're going to join a corporation where they're going to expect you to be online, you need to be ready for that. A lot of people talk about burning out from that kind of thing. They talk about it being some of the best game they ever played. Lots of people who say you haven't played Eve until you're doing the null sov and you're having wars and you're getting the emotional and social benefits of participating in something so dramatic and organized, but at the same time it can take a toll on your life. Personally, I don't ever want to get in a position where I am required to come and form up at a certain time and cancel my social obligations, or have 5 nights a week that are already booked and so I can't make social obligations, right? This is part of why Eve online gets a bad rap, is people having unhealthy relationships with it. And to me, I think being in a corporation that encourages unhealthy relationships is the number one way to end up getting too addicted to Eve. And you can overdo it all by yourself, and a lot of us have done it. But starting with a corporation that promotes healthy boundaries around playing is really important. And the mantra you hear over and over in Eve and in corporations is real life comes first. RL comes first. Real life is primary, and you don't never sacrifice your real life for the game. The thing is, some of them are saying that and then pressuring you to overdo it. So you have to actually pay attention. Do they mean it or not? I love Eve University because I know they genuinely mean it. They're never going to pressure you to hurt yourself. If you make a commitment, they'll be like, hey, you said you were teaching your class. Come on, show up, please. Don't commit to things unless you can commit to them. But they'll never ask you to make a commitment. And to me, I think everyone should think about if that's what they want, or if they want, for example, if you're like, oh, I'm in a corporation and no one shows up and we just lost another structure because no one shows up and you're frustrated and you have time, well, then maybe you should join a corporation that demands things of people and then gives things in return, right? If you're in one of these nullsec corporations that expects you to be available at a certain time, even if it means waking up in the middle of the night, but they're your best friends you've ever had. You can rely on them, and you have infinite free ships to blow up because in exchange for all that work you do, they are giving you something. Then maybe that's good, And I'll say, a lot of corporations are going to promise you to PLEX your account. They're going to say, if you come with us and you come out to nullsec, we are going to give you activities and set you up for success such that if you just play 10 hours a month in this exact way we're giving you, you are going to make enough ISK to PLEX your account. And we're going to make it easy for you to do that, because what they want is their players to be reliable and players who can't pay for their fees, whatever. And maybe that's what you want. If you really don't have $20 to pay for the month and you want to be Omega, maybe that's a good deal. Eve University does not offer anything like that. I suggest that you consider instead, if you have problems paying the $20 a month, make an alpha character, play that alpha character, never go omega, and it'll be free forever. And you can play exactly how you want instead of grinding out some AFK ratting that your nullsec alliance taught you. But hey, if it makes you happy, do it, right? Try it out, try all the different things, make an alpha character, join brave newbies, and see if they can get you to the moon, to plex your account reliably in a way that you enjoy. Try it out, try it all. I just wanted to mention that uh, how much you work on EVE Online. Your corporation may put you in a position where you feel like you should do work, and I encourage you to play EVE Online and enjoy yourself. So there you go. Beyond that, look for a good cultural match. I've joined a few corporations and people were making jokes on Discord, and I was just like, this is gross. Like, why is there one guy who everything everyone says, he turns it in a way to like kind of hit on them or make a sexual joke, even though it doesn't seem like he's interested in them? It's just like a thing. And I'm just like, ugh, yuck, you know? But maybe you're into that, and maybe you like that vibe, that like locker room vibe. Uh, Good luck finding a corporation with gender balance. There's a lot of dudes in EVE Online. I myself, I'm non-binary. My pronouns are they and them. It's not something I make a big deal of here, but I do love gender balance everywhere I go. I love places where there's people, where there's women, where there's non-binary people, where there's trans people. Um, EVE University has some female voices you can hear on comms. Not many. It's not shining example of that kind of diversity, unfortunately. But I will say it is a space where I can imagine women, and I have heard female voices on comms. I can imagine women being uncomfortable, and if someone was being gross, the corporation would not accept it. Whereas I think there's a lot of other corporations where women would naturally bounce out because as soon as they were present, they would get the thing that happens to women when they play games online. I won't dive into it too much, but yeah, find a corporation that matches your personality, that makes you feel comfortable and safe asking questions and answering questions and participating. And I recommend Eve University in that way. It's not always the most exciting or dynamic, but the lack of gross stuff is really nice there. And so find a corporation with a good policy about that, uh, and check it and think about it as you're getting started. And if it's not good, get out of there. Don't stay in a place that's toxic in any way, whether it's asking you to work too much or being weird to you or being weird to other people. Like, take those red flags and listen to them before you overcommit. You can jump around from corporation to corporation. It's not the end of the world. Eve University will probably welcome you as long as you don't have some kind of disgusting record. Great. So, all right. Oh my God. What a visually boring video. I'm sorry about that. I opened the game, but there was really no reason. Oh, I lost the connection eventually. Okay, so we will go back to here, and I wanted to talk about how can you join a corporation. So, uh, first you have to find one. So if you want to join Eve University, you just come and you click join eUni on the wiki, and there's instructions on how to apply, and there's a whole process. Um, Most corporations are going to put you through a bit of a ringer because they don't want people joining who don't mean it, and they probably are a little concerned about spies and stuff like that. There's a whole thing. People make alts and join corporations. Um, to spy on them, to pretend to be someone so that you can then figure out if they're weak. And then if they're weak, you declare war and do all this kind of stuff. Eve University isn't too paranoid about that. They're more or less public, so they just like live with the consequences of being open. But if you're applying to smaller corporations, be ready for them to be skeptical of you, and to kind of like defend yourself and just act normal. My advice is act normal. Don't be weird. Treat it like, yeah, I understand why you're paranoid, and here I am, and this is just me, and just be honest. I don't know. That's worked for me so far. Um, but honor their desire to be careful because a lot of them have been burned in the past. Someone joins the corporation and then steals every ship in the flight deck or something like that. So yeah, common practices while you're doing it is that they'll send you to some kind of portal, and then the portal will
ask you to log in with Eve and grant a certain number of privileges so that they can see your account and they can see your history, and have access to it. And I don't think they can steal your stuff with that. I'm not sure. Maybe there's weird ways to mess with people. I know Eve Online, it's a no Eve University. It can be a bit scary. Yeah, okay, to like give all your read rights, but all they can do is see what you've got going on, and for them it makes them feel comfortable. So anyway, be ready for this. It's not crazy. It's not that weird. And then they'll look it over. Often there'll be a form. They'll ask you some questions, and then someone looks it over and then they'll get back to you. Maybe they have a Discord is really common, you got to get Discord, um, where you'll also log in with Eve, and they'll get back to you, and then eventually they send you a message in the game that invites you to the corporation, and you log into the game and you open the email and you can accept the invitation. Sometimes they'll ask you to go in the game, because you can go in the game and apply to join a corporation, but it often isn't what they want. They often want you to come and apply outside, and then only afterwards apply inside, maybe. So follow the instructions for the corporation, or ask someone in the corporation what to do. Um, that is how you do it. Okay. And then if you don't want to join Eve University, you want to find another one, well, meet people in game and talk to them. That's one way. Uh, Reddit, our Eve, the Eve's subreddit, has a weekly recruitment mega thread. So I noticed this. So I thought maybe this is a good, and like just people talking about what they're recruiting, what they want from you, people talking about asking, describing what they want, and asking for people to apply to them. So that's one way. Another way is on the forums. So in the Eve online official forums, there is an official section called Recruitment Center, and there's a ton of posts. So you can just go look at them and look for something you want, try out different things. Yeah, find one that's interesting to you. Um, One thing I'll say for the sake of alphas is, if you're an alpha, and if you're listening to this channel, maybe you are, be careful, because a lot of corporations don't want alphas, like, and look for one that specifically mentions it. I would personally only consider ones that specifically mention it, because if they don't, you might just get a lot of hassle, and I've even had this in Eve University, if I make criticize a little bit. I've had people in Eve University give me an attitude I didn't think was supportive about being an alpha. Like I'd be like, "Oh, what's a fit that I can use to, like a battleship for an alpha?" And they would say, "Oh, alphas shouldn't fly. Like, why would you? You'll be, you're gonna grow up one day and you'll want to be Omega." And I was like, "Ugh, like I don't know. It's not the end of the world, but." Being in a corporation where they're like, "Oh, you're an alpha, you're a casual player, you only want to play a few hours a week, so you don't want to pay. That's fine. We're gonna help you with fits. We're gonna make it work for you. We're gonna be supportive." To me, that makes a big difference, because if part of the value of being in a corporation is asking for help, if every time you ask for help you get passive aggressive responses about how you should be grinding to either earn your plex to plex your account and be Omega, or you should just pay to be Omega, it's not as fun. So anyway, pay attention. A lot of I thought of it because in here, a lot of these require you to have a certain amount of skills. Like to say you have to have 10 million skill points, or you have to have 5 million skill points. And if they're talking like that, they're not going to be a good alpha corporation at all. Or they might expect you to be multi-boxing even. Who knows? But yeah, so pay attention to that. Any other tips for alphas? No. Play your game, find a nice group that's casual for you. Join Eve University so that we have the critical mass of alphas and people can stop being passive aggressive to us. That'd be great. No. I love Eve University. The people there are nice and sweet, and they're never trying to hurt your feelings. They're just playing their game their way. So for what it's worth, the people who did that to me, I hold them no ill will. I merely look forward to creating an atmosphere of comfort and safety for alphas who want to play the game that way on purpose, rather than just because they haven't saved enough ISK yet to buy Plex, etc. All right. I am Jer. This has been Why Join a Corp starring Eve University. Please, if this is useful to you, like and subscribe and do those things so that YouTube rewards me with all the clicks, which make me feel good. Please if you're making a new character, I would love it. I would feel honored if you would use my referral code to create the character. Of course, you could check out my other videos about min-maxing Alpha SP and Alpha Uprising to understand how that works. But you will get 1 million free skill points to either spend right away to get straight into some interesting ships or to save until your alpha period ends and you already have 5 million skill points. And then you get that 6 million anyway. That's what you get. What I get is not much if you're an alpha, but theoretically, if you buy Plex and things, I get little bonuses in the game. I don't know. I do this for free. I don't want to make money on this hobby, but I would love it if you use the referral code. And most importantly, comment. Give me some comments. I love your comments. I love to talk to people. Everyone's so supportive in the comments, and I really like it. So tell me your stories. How did it go when you joined a corporation? What went wrong? What went right? Are you thinking of joining Eve Unity? Do you have questions about Eve University? I'd love to answer them. Anyway, that's all I have for now. I'm Jer. I love you. Bye bye.